Two LAPD officers walked down the center aisle of an NBC studio, live, to take Elvis Presley off the stage. Dean Martin had 5 seconds to decide whether to lie to America. The place was oven hot under the lights, that baked, humming heat that makes the air look like it's shimmering. 200 people sat in tidy rows, trying to pretend they weren't sweating through their excitement. Dean stood stage left in a tux that looked as effortless as it looked expensive, tie just loose enough to sell nonchalance. Elvis had the crowd in his hands, working the room with that voice that could crack concrete and stop hearts. They were 40 seconds into That's Amore when the doors swung open. Dean saw them first. Not security, real LAPD. Real badges, real guns. They had that purposeful stride that says, "We're not here to ask." Heads turned in a slow wave down the rows, whispers starting like wind over tall grass. Elvis kept singing, chasing the high note, back to the doors, oblivious. Dean's harmony faltered for half a beat, just enough for Elvis to catch his eye, follow the line of sight, and see the officers already halfway up the aisle. His smile died. His voice went with it. The band played 3 more beats, then drifted into silence, instruments trailing off one by one, until all that was left was the shuffle of 200 people trying not to move, and the soft electrical hum of 3 cameras broadcasting every second to 18 million living rooms. The taller officer reached the edge of the stage, set his hand on the lip like it belonged to him, and spoke low enough to feel private, loud enough for the first rows. "Mr. Presley, we need to speak with you now." Dean moved without thinking, sliding between Elvis and the uniforms with the same smoothness he used in choreo. To the audience, it looked intentional, part of the act, a bit, until you saw his jawline, the way his eyes sharpened. "Officers, whatever this is can wait until after—" "It can't," the short officer said. His eyes looked older than his face. "Official police business. Mr. Presley needs to come with us." The control booth behind glass became a silent orchestra of panic, hands flying, faces flushed, a director mouthing curses, trying to choose between cutting to commercial and letting history happen. The red tally lights on top of the cameras glowed steady, still live. Elvis's hands were shaking. He let go of the mic to hide it, and in his eyes Dean saw something he'd never seen there before. Not the soft, guilty kind you get from missing rehearsal, a heavier thing. The kind that says, "I did something and they've come for me, and maybe I deserve it." "What's this about?" Dean asked, his voice even. "Hit and run," the short officer said. 3 hours ago, Sunset Boulevard, white Cadillac, partial plate matches Mr. Presley's vehicle." The words hit like a punch Dean refused to show. "Was anyone hurt?" A beat. The tall officer blinked. "Victim is in critical condition at Cedars-Sinai. Compound fractures, possible brain injury." A single gasp escaped from somewhere in the crowd and died in the hot air. The red lights stayed on. Elvis looked at Dean. His lips formed 3 words without sound. "I didn't do it." Dean had 5 seconds to choose what he believed and what he was willing to stake on it. 18 million people waited for the answer. He turned to the cameras, to those red lights that meant eyes everywhere, and he smiled. Not the stage smile, the real one that says, "I know how this looks. Trust me for 1 more minute." Then he faced the officers. "Officers, I was with Elvis all afternoon. Rehearsal here from 1 p.m. until airtime. 40 witnesses. He never left the building." The lie landed like silk. "You can account for every minute?" the short officer asked. "Every minute. Ask the director, the sound engineer, the kid who brings his coffee." Dean didn't blink. This was the line you don't uncross. Guardian or accomplice, choose your label. The officers did their math, a partial plate versus a live arrest fiasco, the word of 2 of the country's biggest stars. The tall one exhaled, like he was walking through his own minefield. "We'll verify with staff. Mr. Presley needs to come in voluntarily at 8 a.m. tomorrow to give a statement and allow us to examine his vehicle." "He'll be there," Dean said, "with his lawyer." They stepped back, the doors closed, and then the studio broke like a dam. Audience chatter, the director finally finding his voice and screaming, "Cut to commercial." The red lights died as a cheerful detergent ad muscled onto the air like nothing had happened. Dean grabbed Elvis's arm hard enough to leave fingerprints and steered him to the dressing room. He locked the door and turned. The famous Kroner voice was gone. What came out was low and dangerous. "Did you do it?" "No," Elvis's voice cracked. It sounded like glass under pressure. "I haven't driven the Cadillac in 2 days. My cousin's been using it. His car's in the shop, transmission. He can't afford it. If I tell the cops that, they'll go after him. He's got old warrants in Memphis, bar fights, fines, stupid mistakes. They'll ship him back even if he didn't cause the accident." Not a confession, not clean. A web, family, loyalty, fear. "Where is he?" "Supposed to bring the car back this morning, never showed. I called his motel, nothing." Dean paced the narrow room, mind racing ahead of his feet. "Here's what happens. You call everyone who saw you today. Make sure they remember you were here and never left. Then you find your cousin. If he's innocent, we clear him. If he's guilty, we make a plan. Tomorrow at 8 a.m. you walk into Hollywood Division with the best lawyer money can buy, and you tell them what I told them. You were here, you have witnesses, and your car was being used without your permission." "That's still lying," Elvis said. "That's survival," Dean snapped. "I lied to cops on national television for you. If this goes bad, it doesn't just burn you, it burns me, the band, the show, the people whose paychecks depend on our names staying clean. Fix it, or I'll tell them I was wrong." A sharp knock rattled the door. "Mr. Martin, Mr. Presley, the director needs you immediately." Then everything sped up. Lawyers materialized like they'd been waiting in the wings. Meetings blurred. Calls multiplied. Carefully worded statements got drafted and redrafted, while the first wave of reports hit the air. Police walk on live TV to question Elvis Presley about a hit and run. By midnight, every station ran the clip, again and again, the moment repeating like a heartbeat. Morning brought a sliver of mercy. News from Cedars-Sinai said the woman had stabilized. Cautiously optimistic, the two softest words in a hard world. 8 a.m. Elvis walked into Hollywood Division in a suit that fit like money, flanked by a lawyer whose hourly rate could buy a car. The studio backed the rehearsal timeline. The crew backed it. The Cadillac showed no damage consistent with striking a pedestrian. Without a driver to question, and without a match on the vehicle, the case cooled in 2 weeks. An anonymous trust appeared. It paid every bill and then some. No cameras followed the checks. No headlines marked the rehab milestones. NBC aired the special the next week with a tasteful on-screen note about an unexpected interruption by local authorities. Ratings spiked to the highest in 5 years. People watched to see the moment they'd heard about. They got the show instead. And then, as they always do, the headlines drifted to brighter scandals. Dean and Elvis never spoke about that night again. Not directly, but when they shared a stage, there was always a look, a half-second in the crossfade where their eyes met, and both of them remembered the heat of the lights, the red tally glow, the weight of the 5 seconds where everything could have gone another way. It hung between them like smoke, no less real for being invisible. Later, alone with the Vegas Strip buzzing under his window, Dean would pour one drink he didn't need and stare at a city built on lights and shadows. He would think about truth and lies and the thin strip of gray where most of life actually happens. He would think about a 53-year-old woman who never chose to be part of a story and about a cousin running south with a guilt that didn't check into any border. He would think about the instant he stepped between a friend and consequences, not because it was right in the clean way people like to print in newspapers, but because love sometimes looks like a shield. He knew this: if the doors opened again and the walk began, he would make the same choice. You stand where you have to, you take the hit you can bear, you live with what follows, and hope it's enough. If you want the story of the night someone else came looking for Dean, with higher stakes and sharper lies, drop a sunglasses in the comments. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is right now, and I'll take you there.